First, we're going to have Danez Smith, who is the author of 3 collections, including Homie and Don't Call Us Dead. They have won the Forward Prize for Best Collection, the Minnesota Book Award for Poetry, the Lambda Literary Award for Gay Poetry, the Kate Tufts Discovery Award, and have been a finalist for the NAACP Image Award for Poetry, the National Book Critic Circle Award, and the National Book Award. Danez's poetry and prose has been featured in Vanity Fair, The New York Times, New Yorker, GQ, Best American Poetry, and The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Danez is a member of the Dark Noise Collective, former host of the Webby-nominated podcast Versus. They are the recipient of fellowships from the Poetry Foundation, Princeton, United States Artists, the McKnight Foundation, Cave Canem, and National Endowment for the Arts. Danez has been featured as part of Forbes' annual 30 Under 30 list and is the winner of a Pushcart Prize. And they live in Minneapolis, near their people, and luckily, near us. All right, so let's welcome Danez to the stage.
Hey, y'all. How y'all doing? Good. Thank y'all for joining us on this here Tuesday. When it's so beautiful outside, I would have definitely ditched if this was my school. But I'm the guest, so I'm going to be here. I'm going to be quick because I want to hear Kwame Dawes read some poems. If y'all don't know anything about Kwame Dawes before today, he is an international champion and treasure, and we are lucky to have him. And so consider yourself part of the lucky. Okay. Also, y'all's school buys y'all free books. That's really great. My school never did that. They were like, you can surely get a book for that back table with a credit card machine. So, like, you know, points for your school. Cool. Okay, I think I'll mostly read from Homie then, since that's the book that y'all will be getting. I think I was like breaking up with America still when I was writing this book, or at least like my faith in like the democratic system. And I was writing this book, like most of it like happened, like sometime between like 2015 and like 2019, right? So that was like Trump time a lot in there. And screw Trump, first and foremost, always, right? He just sucks. And I was just listening to an old episode of a podcast yesterday, and it was wild because it was from like 2014, and they were like, Donald Trump wants to be president. That'll never happen. Ha, 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 ha. I was like, little did y'all know. Okay. Why am I saying all this about this poem? Because this poem, like, I think, like, okay, so there was also this period where, like, you know, after Obama was president, where people would be like, that's my president, talking about him or, like, other things, like how this poem does. And that was, like, cool, but I'm like, man, I was, like, still trying to hold on to the idea of presidents sometimes, I think. I think it's important to, like, I don't know, believe in something. And this poem is trying to believe in something. And it believes in community. Okay, let me just shut up and read the poem. My president. Today, I elect Jonathan, 11 and already making roads out of water. Young genius, blog writer, little community activist, curls tight as pinky swears, black as my nation. I trust the world in his tender, blooming hands. I trust him to tell us which rivers are safe to drink and which hold fish like a promise. And I elect Eve Ewing, who I know would misfrizzle the country into one big classroom where grandmas finger paint the national budget and uncles stand around smoking blacks, plotting on stars for our escape. She could walk to the podium at her inauguration and say the future is now, and we'd all marvel as the sun and moon started looping the sky like a GIF. It's pronounced GIF as the cars all learned to fly and our skin grew bulletproof. And Colin Kaepernick is my president, who kneels on the air, bent toward a branch, throwing apples down to the children children and vets. And Rihanna is my president, walking out of global summits with a wine glass still in hand. Our taxes returned in gold to dust our faces into coins. And my mama is my president. Her grace stunts on amazing brown hands, breaking brown bread over the mouths of the sick until there are none unfed. And my grandma is my president, and her cabinet is her cabinet, cause she knows to trust what the pan knows, how the skillet wins the war. And the man I saw high kicking his way down the river, he is my president. And the trans girl making songs in her closet, spinning the dark into a booming dress, she too is my president. And Shonda Rhimes is my president, and Nate Marshall is my president, and Trina is my president, and the boys outside Walgreens selling candy for a possibly fictional basketball team, they are my presidents. And the bus driver who stops after you yell wait only twice is my prez. And dude at the pizza spot who will give you a free slice if you're down to wait for him to finish the day's fourth prayer is my president. And my auntie, only a few months clean, but clean, she is my president. And my neighbor who holds the door open when my arms are full of laundry is my president. And every head nod is my president. And every child singing summer with a red sweet tongue is my president. And the birds and the cooks and the single moms especially, and the weed dealers and the teachers and the meter maid who lets you slide, and the cab drivers who stop, and the nurses' swollen feet. Oh shit. Fat lot of poem. And the braiders' exhausted hands, and the bartender, and Beyonce, and all her kids, and the rabbi, and the sad girls, and the leather daddy who almost stops to say good morning, and the boy crying on the train, and the sudden abuela who rubs his back, and the uncle who offers him water, and the drag queen who begins to hum, oh, my presidents, my presidents, my presidents, my presidents, show me to our nation. My only border is my body. I sing your names, your names, my mighty anthem. Cool. Thank you. I like this poem. Let's read it. Do y'all, okay, y'all, some of y'all are of an age. Y'all, my age, damn it, I mean, not that. Because sometimes sometimes you look up and like everybody's like 19, and it's like you. Like, I love 19-year-olds, but you remember nothing that I remember. And I think most of you in here remember the 90s, okay? So you remember 90s R&B music videos, right? It was just often about being very fashionable and sad in a very expensive place. That is how I would like my life to be. And so this is me trying to imagine myself into like a Deborah Cox or a like Toni Braxton video. Although I think the Tamia video for Stranger in My House is the more accurate piece that this ekphrastic work is pulling from. Self-portrait as a 90s R&B video. Lately, I've been opening doors in slow motion, and often find myself wearing loose white silks in rooms packed with wind machines in dusk. I have a tendency to be sad near windows, thinking of all the problems I have with my man, with his trifling yellow ass. My man is more a concept than anything. At dinner, I watch red pepper soup spill onto his powder blue button down and ask, why don't you love me anymore? I sit on the couch with a wine glass full of milk, cry in ways that frame me gorgeous and fuckable. My girls come over and we light his suits to burn our spliffs, buy Gucci heels with his credit cards and stomp out all his shit. My best friend tells me that I need to get over him, say that he don't even exist, but what she know? I got all this house to walk through, all these gowns to cry on, all these windows to watch the rain. There must be a man in this house who loves me too much to do it well. There's a room in my basement filled with water and gold, and that's it. Water up to my well-managed waist, gold link chains that curl around my ankles like a boa constrictor or the hands of a man around a neck he used to love to bite. I dip my head in, let even my hair get wet and rise out the water. Hood Venus, Aphrodite, ghetto god with iced out ropes draped from my head and arms, covering my nipples and ill nana just so I could be a trophy for some award show only niggas know. Every rapper's favorite ex. 1996 given a body and he don't want this. I walk into my foyer because I have a foyer and say, "Who is she, motherfucker?" I promise the hydrangeas flinch. My man so fake he don't exist. My girls was right. Those suits we burned were mine. My man's all in my head and it's a bad head. As tomorrow, after I run and spend some time studying the mirror, I'll burn this whole shit down like Left Eye would, like any good wife. Whatever survives the blaze will be my kingdom. I hope I make it. Cool. What? I'm gonna read 2 more poems and then sit down. All right. Does anybody in here have a family member that you love a lot, like a lot, but if they died, life would be a little bit easier? Cool. We're having a GSA meeting outside. That's normally either how you find out like who's gay in a room or just who like has a father. Waiting on you to die so I can be myself. 1,000 years of daughters, then me. What else could I have learned to be? Girl after giving herself to herself, one long ring shout name, a monarchy of copper and cold shoulders. The body too is a garment. I learned this best from the snake undulating out of her pork rind dress. I crawl out of myself into myself, take refuge where I flee. Once I snatched out my heart like a track and found not a heart but 2 girls forever playing slide on a porch in my chest. Who knows how they keep count? They could be a single girl doubled and joined at the hands. I'm stalling. I want to say something without saying it. But there's no time. I'm waiting for a few folks I love dearly to die so I can be myself. Please, don't make me say who. Bitch, the garments I'd buy if my baby wasn't alive. If they woke up at their wake, they might not recognize that woman in the front making all that noise. Cool. Whew. All right. Cool. One more. Not from this book, but I think. Okay. Let's make a movie called Dinosaurs in the Hood. Jurassic Park meets Friday meets The Pursuit of Happiness. There should be a scene where a little black boy is on the bus playing with a toy dinosaur, then looks out the window and sees a T-Rex because there has to be a T-Rex. Duh. It's a dinosaur movie. What the shit did you think was going to happen? Oh my God. Don't let Tarantino direct this. In his version, the boy plays with a gun. The metaphor being black boys toy with their own lives. The spitting image of his father. The foreshadow to his end. Fuck that. The kid is playing with a plastic triceratops or brontosaurus. And this is his proof of magic or God or Santa or some weird freaky lizard Jesus Saint Nick shit. I don't know. I want a scene where a cop car gets pooped on by a pterodactyl. I want a scene where a corner store turns into a battleground, but please don't let the Wayans brothers in this movie. I don't want any racist shit about Asian people or overused pan-Latino stereotypes. This is a movie about a neighborhood of royal folks, the children of slaves and addicts and exile and immigrants saving their town from real-ass dinosaurs. I don't want some cheesy yet progressive, sexy Vietnamese hot dude hero with a funny yet strong black girl buddy cop film. This is not a vehicle for Will Smith and Sofia Vergara. I want grandmas, real ass grandmas on the front porch taking out raptors with the guns they hid in the walls and under mattresses. I want Cecily Tyson to make a speech, possibly two. I want some of those little spitty, screamy dinosaur things that go. I want Viola Davis to save the town in the last scene with a black fist afro pick through the last dinosaur's long scaled neck. And this can't be a black movie. This movie can't be a black movie. This movie can't be about. Oh, I forgot how this poem ends. This movie, this movie can't be about black pain or cause black pain. This movie can't be dismissed because of its cast or its audience. This movie can't be a metaphor for black people and extinction. This movie can't have a long history with having a long history with hurt. This movie can't be about race. Nobody can say nigga in this movie who can't say it to my face in public. No chicken jokes in the movie. No bullet holes in the heroes. And nobody kills the black boy. And nobody kills the black boy. And nobody kills the black boy. Nobody kills the black boy. Nobody kills the black boy. Nobody kills that black boy. Besides, the only reason I want to make this is for the first scene anyway. That little black boy on the bus with his toy dinosaur, his eyes wide and endless, his dreams possible and pulsing and right there. Cool. Thank y'all.
For both of you, when you started your journey to like publishing and not just writing, but like actually getting it done, what is advice that you wish you had been given?
Well, I can start. So, I mean, as a writer, so there's this poet guy, right, that I became. But that wasn't how I started as a writer. I started as a playwright. I was about 18, and for the first 10 years of my sort of real serious writing existence, I was a playwright. I started a company, and this was in Jamaica, and we produced plays and so on and so forth. So, and I was writing very seriously. And I was looking at the examples of great Caribbean writers, Dennis Scott, Derek Walcott, who went to the same university I did years before. And then people like Athol Fugard and so on and so forth. So theater is a weird space because production is your publication. And there's an immediate response to what you're writing, both from the actors and the company you're working with, and then from the audience that you're working with.
Yeah.
And then you get reviewed if you're fortunate, and they're the reviews that happen. There's an immediacy to that. And so I think I was practiced in the idea of a relationship between what I was creating and the immediate involvement of other people in that engagement. And in a sense, that prepared me because, of course, when I remember the first time I took a play to the company that I had formed, and they read it, and then they all said, "We're not doing this. This just can't work," and that was rude. And they said, "It's not bad." It was a play about women, and the women just said, "We don't talk like this. We don't even know what you're talking about." So they sent me off to do research into women. That's what they did. Now, that was immediate, and that was kind of painful, but there was also a sense that they were committed to this thing.
Right.
So that when I brought it back and it was improved, they were affirming, and then they helped me improve it more and more and more. I say that to suggest that as a writer, that became an isolated, as a poet, it became more isolating. But that lesson of the experience of not giving up when there's rejection and so on and so forth has stayed with me. I'll just give you a simple anecdote. I mean, I came to the States in '92. In the first 8 years of my time in the States, I'd published books in the UK. I had about 4 or 5 books published in the UK. I couldn't get a book published in the US. Just constantly rejected. Like, I'm a good poet. Like, I won the biggest prize in the UK. I couldn't get anybody to publish my book here. My book, Midlands, which was eventually taken, had to win a prize. I tell everybody, it was 42 rejections. 41 rejections. The 42nd was the call from Ohio University Press saying you won the Hollis Summers Prize for Midlands. That book, by any stretch of the imagination, is a fine book. That 41 bunch, they were idiots, right? They were complete idiots. They just didn't get it. So anybody who comes to me complaining, "Gosh, I sent out my book and got rejected by 5 people," I said, come, like, you keep working on it, but you don't cry to me at this point. Like, that's just early on. Like, that's like you haven't even begun to talk about this. So what I would say is I think I had good advice. The advice came to me in the experience as a playwright. And I never look back and say I wish I had known or not known because it's what I knew then. And I think I'm comfortable with that. What I know now doesn't necessarily, would not necessarily have helped me then to persist. But that's how I would answer that. Yeah. Yeah.
That's beautiful. My undergrad advisor, similar anecdote, said it was his 100th submission that got his first book submitted or published.
Yeah.
So 99 rejections on his first book,
Yeah.
and then the literal 100th one. And then went on to have like a long
Sure.
publishing career, wonderful things, but it takes a while. I think I feel like a lot of kinship with your origins and like artistry and publishing. So like I started theater, and even my gateway through poetry was through spoken word and through slam, and so I think even before years later when I started publishing, I already had a relationship between like my work and the idea of an audience, and also that immediate feedback, right? Because with slam, it's literally like I pour your heart out, and it's like you get a 6, I didn't get 6s, but and I think but that did like kind of have this tug between. Because I think what happens with slam is that you can start playing for the audience as well, and sort of lose track of your own voice and desire. It becomes what gets a 10, not what is most urgent for me to say. And I think something can also be lost, when you first start publishing, especially if that is your like sort of the first time that you are developing a relationship between your work and a public that doesn't owe you anything, in an editorial place that is not always friendly or that has no reason to like you, is I think you can start to have this diminishing relationship with your own self, and I think it's good to have a relationship with rejection, with feedback, with all these things by having a good community of folks who are letting you know the impact of your work. If you're not a poet that's used to reading yourself in public, every place got an open mic, go and read in front of people. It's a live feedback. But you can, so I guess have a relationship, like start to ask yourself, okay, like especially like if there's a particular piece that like maybe keeps getting rejected or something like that, right? It's like, how do I move this piece forward in a way that it connects with these audiences that I'm trying to connect with, but also how do I retain what is weird, funky, ugly, and totally me about this as well. Which is a hard relationship to manage, right? But I think it's something we have to ask ourselves the entire time. And like, because I do think you want to bow to the audience at times too, or like say like, I am putting this in your face because I would like you to have a reaction to it. So yeah, just think about like your relationship to yourself and your work and what other people have to say about it.
I like that. I like the idea that you protect the artist in you. You've got to. I mean, sometimes we do a lot of workshopping and so on and so forth, but you kind of have to protect that, and to protect it in a critical way. Like you're self-critical, but you protect that side of you as a writer. For somebody who teaches, we teach, so we are always giving advice to students, but I always tell them, this is just me talking to you, and I know I'm good, but you should protect, you should have a place, a little room that is yours to keep, and to keep creating stuff. Don't feel you have to share everything you've written with me. Don't create that relationship.
Ooh, that's a big one.
It's I think it's crucial, because in fact that is what is sustaining you. Like a lot of stuff goes wrong. Like you create relationships, they end. You have a mentor, their mentor dies or whatever, and then what? Do you understand what I mean? Yeah. So there's a part of you that has to start creating it. And the other thing is, I think we create relationships with. I'm mentored by other writers who I don't even know. I read them as mentors for me, and they are available, right? They are constantly available, whether they're living or they're dead, or I know them or I don't know them. And that is a craft conversation too, but it's also the idea of how do they, it says 20 books. I think I've published about 35 books of poetry. So how do I keep writing? Then I look at Haney and I look at Walcott, and I'm not looking at them as these amazing people, but all the steps of their writing, and how do they keep generating, and how can I? So we are mentored. We find mentors in multiple places, and they don't have to be those that talk back to us and affirm us. They are the people that I want my poems to be read beside them, and I'm not embarrassed.
Wow, that's a beautiful thing.
You know what I mean? So you got a lot there.
All right, so hopefully this will be a little bit less of an extensive question. First of all, I know I speak for everybody. Thank you so much, guys, for coming out here. This was amazing.
Thank you.
Both of you were amazing poets. Something that I really noticed in both of your poems, though, a lot of repetition and a lot of list. And I know that some of us here are aspiring poets to write. How do you know when too much is too much? Either in your spoken word presentation or when you're publishing. How do you know when to reel back? How do you know when to cut off? How do you know when to push forward?
I mean, it should be exciting to you. So if you're cringing, the audience is cringing, right? If you, I mean, but I don't think there's a prescriptive answer. Is what I'm trying to say, right? Is that you really do have to sort of trust your internal compass, right? And what is too much for you or what is too much for somebody else in the audience might be just right for somebody else, right? So all of us are gonna have different opinions. There's the point at the end of the last poem I did where like, sometimes I do it 4 times, sometimes I do it 80 times. That thing of like, we won't kill the black boy, whatever it is. So, for me, that's a feeling. And even in the writing process, right? Like that's you developing your style and your voice. There is no, oh, you need one less. Who the fuck says, right? I mean, like I always think to cut off my like speaking of listing, I think it is something you do so well. Like one person I've been thinking about it, been really transformed by is a poet by the name of Dion Moran. And reading some of her newer work, she just goes like she'll just enter a list and just go, and it's just like I'm like, wow, like what permission do you get in the bottom of like allowing yourself to dive into such expanse, right? Of just saying I'm gonna continue this pattern until it finally releases me. I'm not gonna say cut myself off at a rule of 3 or at something that feels clean and concise, right? But letting yourself be moved in a way that makes sense to the intelligence of your soul in the thing, right? Not in some, crafty, I can open up this book and it tells me to say it 3 times type thing. So you don't know, but you feel it. And I think feeling is a kind of knowledge when it comes to art making. So yeah, just trust that internal compass that tells you like keep going or stop. And if you're in, I will say though, like if you are a person who like tells yourself to like, I don't know, some of us are controlled and some of us are wild. But it's always good to like play in the other field, right? So if you're always a everything is too much person, see what expanse looks like. If you're, off the chain and you never think anything is enough, it could always be a little bit more, maybe you do have something to learn from constraint, right? Those are all just muscles that we have to work out in the work. And, the poem is just the jungle gym, but you can practice that somewhere else. One thing I did for a year to like medicine myself as a writer, I wrote a high bun every day. Right, and a high bun is a Japanese form that is made up of a prose poem and a haiku, right? And for me, that was really helpful to like have like something that was very constrained, that I could only say these 17 syllables, and then something that could go on forever if I wanted to, right? And that was a good practice for me in learning once I was writing other poems again to have that sense of when do I want to lean towards something that is more lean, and when do I allow myself off the rails a little bit, right? So it was a good exercise just to help refine that compass between the two.
Yeah. But don't be fooled, right? Dana's sounds like it's just loose and so. This is like meticulously crafted stuff.
For sure, and I've been writing since I was like a
yeah. So every repetition that you think is there, just look at that poem that opens with the image of the boy and ends with the image of the boy. And the way in which it has a filmic construct, this is like highly sophisticated stuff. So the answer is a craft question. It's a craft question of what the poem demands. And you have to begin to think. So when you're doing this for a while, you have a checklist. You're doing that. So it's not like you say there's a list. Now I know there's a list, and I know if you see me editing my poems, I'm working it through so that the thing reaches that point. So I'm hoping that it achieves just what it needs to contain the idea. And whatever you might imagine, you think you understand about a poem that a poet, especially an accomplished poet that's impressing you, has done, you think you might imagine that they are doing it and they don't know they're doing it. Oh, trust me, they know exactly what they're doing. They've thought of it. You can barely tell me stuff about my poem that I don't know. Now that's not what you hear in school, and whatever your opinion is and stuff. No, I know. I've been thinking about all your opinions of my poem before you got it. Yeah, because we're not dumb. We've been doing this for a while. So part of it is to think. And so as a poet, you want to know that poem. I think one of our anxieties is that we think if we know the poem well, it means we are killing the magic of the poem by that knowledge. That's not true. There are moments of surprise. There are moments but just think of a poet that has to read their damn poem every night for a year. You think they don't know their poem? Do you think Bob Dylan doesn't know his songs? He knows them inside out because he's been stuck with them. So So I think that's the thing too. As a poet, you want to get to understand it. You're taught by your poem. You're taught to understand where it's going, but you're also working until that poem seems right, and trust that.
Yeah.
You got to trust that.
I think one of the biggest things I got from what you said is also like it's so much just about how to trust the editing process,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because it is about editing,
Absolutely.
right? Very rarely does a piece show up fully formed.
That's
right.
right. It's
That I
rare.
just took my little 20 minutes, I wrote it. Oh, it's genius, you know? Like for every one of those, there's 100,000 of the poems that had to really be worked on and revisited, right? And I think like a lot of what I was talking about, like, you know, some of that compass is about the shishi wufu thing of the first draft, which is very magical and improvisational at
Yeah.
times, right? Depending on if you're doing free verse or maybe following a form,
Yeah.
right? But there is some relationship to like improvisation in the first draft, right? And then after that, it is about skill and scaffolding and considering it, right? And that's what I mean by that compass, right? Because for every poem, it's going to be a different answer when
That's
you're
right.
editing it,
That's
right?
right.
Just sometimes you're going to make the same decision across two poems, and when you come back to it, in one poem, maybe it's the exact right decision that happened. You encounter it in another poem of yours, and something tells you, no, let me reroute and go in another direction, or let me amplify what's happening in that moment, right? So it's really like the too much and all that of it all is really like how do you get to know your own toolbox
Yeah.
as a poet, right?
Yeah.
Because you know what you're doing, right? And
Yeah.
like same as the musician, right? It's what tells a musician like, oh no, tonight we can't do that song,
That's
or
right.
we're gonna take it down. Let's take it down an octave tonight and slow it down,
That's
right? Because
right.
that's the mood, right? And we're doing the same stuff in writing.
Yeah.
You know, being able to manipulate rhythm and emotion and image and all these things, right? Yeah, you don't know if it's too much, but the point is to make it look flawless.
Yeah.
And flawlessness takes a lot of
That's
practice.
the goal. That's the
That
goal.
might be a wonderful note to end on. And
Sure.
let's give a round of applause for everyone.
Thank you, guys.
I'm gonna ask you